Croyais sincèrement à un rêve, et j'aimais beaucoup ce rêve.
He had only taken a short nap on the train when he found himself in an awkward situation.
Monsieur.
He hurriedly took out his ticket to prove he hadn't deliberately evaded payment, but he was still forced off the train. He had traveled this route countless times, never imagining he'd make a mistake on his daughter's birthday. Soon, the train passed through a long tunnel and made a temporary stop at a small station. He was ejected from the train and had to wait for the next service to Paris. Standing on the platform, he looked around in confusion. The town was surrounded by mountains, shrouded in mist and clouds. The station was old and dilapidated but had a simple, natural charm. The familiar sight left him momentarily stunned. He had unexpectedly returned to his hometown, a place he hadn't visited in years. He glanced at his worn-out wristwatch, hesitated for a moment, then dragged his suitcase toward the village ahead. The lake was still as green as ever, and the houses in the village remained, though they now bore signs of age and wear. The town's buildings looked much older, and the streets seemed even more deserted. He walked for a while, encountering only strangers he didn't recognize, until a mechanic by the roadside called out his name. He froze for a few seconds before recognizing the man, his old friend Godin. The last time they'd met, Godin had a full head of hair. Now, their reunion was filled with emotion. His friend enthusiastically took him on a walk down the childhood paths they'd once known. They talked happily along the way, walking from one end of the street to the other. The town that had once seemed so vast when they were children now felt small. His friend invited him for a drink, but he declined the offer. He wanted to visit his mother's grave in the cemetery before the train arrived. Dragging his clumsy suitcase, he made his way to the town's graveyard. Looking at the dense array of tombstones, he realized he couldn't quite remember where his mother was buried. Fortunately, the cemetery wasn't too large, and his mother's tombstone was unusually simple. He didn't walk far before finding it. He crouched down and gently ran his hands over the stone. The cold surface carried a warmth that reminded him of his mother, and tears quietly filled his eyes. After his mother's passing, things hadn't gone well for him. His career had stagnated, and his marriage was on the verge of collapse. The pressures of reality left him constantly frowning. He desperately wanted to find answers to his problems. Unaware that the key lay hidden in this land he had been reluctant to revisit. At that moment, a butterfly caught his attention, and his gaze followed it until he felt dizzy and fell to the ground. He didn't know how long he had been unconscious, but when he opened his eyes again, he scrambled to his feet, rushed out of the cemetery, grabbed a bicycle by the roadside, and pedaled toward the station. He didn't notice that he had changed his mind, was consumed by the promise he'd made to his daughter and the fear of his family falling apart. It wasn't until he saw his reflection in the window of a roadside shop, a young face identical to his childhood photos, that he realized something was wrong. The town had also returned to its former bustling state, with traffic flowing and people going about their lives. Even Godin, whom he'd just met, now appeared as a child. To test his bold suspicion, he hurried to his old home.
Voilà. T'es passé où tout ce temps?
His father happened to be coming out of the house at that moment and called to him for help. He quickly followed. His father went inside, and through the glass window, he saw familiar figures, his well-behaved younger sister playing on the floor.
Quelque chose ne va pas? Tu as encore mal à la tête? Frais comme un carton.
The warmth on his face made him momentarily unsure whether this was a dream or reality. Everything in the house remained unchanged. The regrets of the past had not yet occurred. The dolls in the cabinet, the vinyl records on the shelf, and even his father's watch, which he still wore to this day, memories faded by time, gradually became clear again. Family members he had only been able to reunite with in dreams over the past 20 years now stood vividly before him once more.
Tu me fais un bisou?
Pourquoi?
Imagine que demain je sois plus là.
He had always regretted not stopping his father from leaving on June 5th. Perhaps if his father had stayed, he could have avoided the misfortunes of the latter half of his life. After dinner, he habitually picked up the newspaper on the table to read, only to find the date on it was June 12th, 1967. And his father was still there. June 5th, 1967.
Anniversaire de papa. Ses 40 ans, c'était bien le 5 jours?
Oui, pourquoi?
On est déjà le 12.
Was his father's 40th birthday, but he left without a word that night. He took nothing with him, nor did he leave anything behind. The sudden change caused the family's life to take a sharp downturn. His mother never smiled again. To support the family, she had to take on 2 part-time jobs. Under immense financial pressure and mental torment, she fell ill and never recovered, passing away while still waiting for her husband's return. This was another time he woke up from this illusion. He had tried every method to travel back, but no matter what, he couldn't leave. So he had to accept reality and go to school.
Maman,
Alors c'était quoi?
il est où papa?
Où tu veux qu'il soit? Dans son atelier.
Even though he was starting over, he still found studying unbearably difficult. A 4-5-minute class felt like being in prison. The only comfort was that the refreshing smell of essential oil balm remained as good as ever, and the sketchbook in his drawer was his go-to for passing time. The girl in the drawings was Dumontel, the well-known school beauty, and later the inspiration for his career as a cartoonist. Yet he had never interacted with her. He simply kept those feelings buried in his heart. This time, however, his little secret was discovered by the teacher.
Je suppose que vous faites des mathématiques en cours de dessin? Ça ne vous intéresse pas, mon petit problème d'algèbre?
Je veux dire, je sais plus comment on fait.
Il serait temps de vous réveiller, montrez-moi ça.
Non, c'est personnel.
Donnez-moi ce cahier. Tiens. On dirait Mademoiselle Dumontel.
Et en quoi ça vous regarde? C'est vous qui faites des insinuations déplacées.
Ça suffit! Debout! Et chez monsieur le proviseur!
This was the first time he rebelled against a teacher. Even his rebellious, curly-haired friend couldn't stand it. He used to tremble at the teacher's accusations, but if this was a dream, he might as well be bold. He advised his friend to quit smoking, since later in life, he would die of lung cancer from it. But his friend thought he was meddling, and they parted on bad terms. Yet they reconciled the next day. At this age, nothing a simple bro couldn't fix. After school, they still gathered together. He began to desperately enjoy the so-called youth and innocence, as if the memories of adulthood were the ones in the dream. With the wisdom of someone far older, he quickly thrived at school. One day, the school beauty, Dumontel, found him angrily.
C'est lequel, Thomas Vergnat?
C'est moi.
Alors, à ce qui paraît, je suis le modèle d'un grand artiste.
Un grand artiste, non, mais...
Tu peux voir à quoi je ressemble.
After seeing the drawings, Dumontel smiled faintly. It seemed she didn't mind. The next day, he found Dumontel waiting for him at the school gate. She hoped to walk home with him. They walked side by side. To break the awkwardness, he kept searching for topics to talk about, from the Louvre in Paris, to museums in Beijing, to the sunrise at North Cape, Norway. He even mentioned he would become a cartoonist in the future, planning to create a comic series inspired by Dumontel. Dumontel thought he was just sweet-talking and making empty promises. But before they parted, he couldn't resist giving her a kiss. That kiss left her enchanted, unable to sleep all night. From then on, they spent more and more time together, which sparked jealousy in his friend.
Tu vas rien me dire? On n'est plus copains?
Mais si, bien sûr que si.
He confronted Thomas, posing a life-altering choice. His best friend's attitude left him truly at a loss. Perhaps the cost of youth was that no matter what choice you made, there was bound to be regret. Instead of dwelling on it, he chose to seize the moment. He began to savor the romantic time with Dumontel, gradually forgetting that this might all just be a dream.
C'est quoi ce random?
Allez papa, viens danser avec maman.
His father's reaction still ruined the mood. His mother stood there awkwardly. That night, his younger sister suddenly woke up from a nightmare. He hurried over to comfort her, but she called her by her younger daughter's name. Soon, his sister fell back asleep, but he sat on the bed, unable to sleep. He remembered this was all a dream, and in reality, his family was waiting for him. He shouldn't be lost in this illusion. He needed to return to his own world. So the next morning, just as dawn broke, he rode his bicycle frantically toward the cemetery. He returned to the spot where he had first awakened. He closed his eyes and prayed to the gods. But when he opened them again, he was still in the dream. Disheartened, he went home and buried his face in his mother's arms. She could tell her son was in unspeakable pain, so she didn't ask why, just silently held. He suddenly realized that maternal love was the shackle one wanted to escape from in youth, but could never truly get away from, and it was also the cherished memory one longed to find again in old age, but could never reclaim. Expectations could be severed, but lovesickness could not. Maternal love was a mother spending her whole life saying goodbye to her children, while she spent her entire life telling them to be careful on the way. Afterward, his mother took him to the lakeside for a heart-to-heart talk. It was then that he learned his father's birthday gathering had been postponed to this Sunday. On June 5th, when he hadn't returned home, the family had anxiously gone out to search for him. It wasn't until evening that his father found him unconscious at the cemetery. Thus, the family gathering had to be canceled. However, he had little recollection of this experience. The doctor said he had been injured when he fell and hit his head, so temporary amnesia was normal. His mother's words made him suddenly realize that when he was 14, he had indeed suffered a head injury. But since then, he had never been able to recall the complete memories of that time. Now he finally understood that he hadn't lost his memory. It was another middle-aged version of himself, who had already been here once. But he couldn't understand why. Even as a middle-aged man, he still couldn't change the outcome of his father leaving. Could history only be experienced but not altered? Regardless, he still called his future wife, whom he had never met, to ensure they would still encounter each other in the future. After that, he began to calm down and think, but he still couldn't figure out why his father had abandoned his wife and children and disappeared without a trace. If his time travel hadn't changed the original cause and effect chain, then his father would leave this Sunday. To keep his father from leaving, he claimed to be injured and unable to go to school, specifically taking a week off to follow his father around every moment. On the first day, he didn't notice anything unusual. Instead, he found himself very similar to his father. Both of them were the quiet ones in their marriages.
Demain, tu peux monter chez Mémé Yvette?
Mémé Yvette.
His grandmother was delighted that Thomas had come to visit her. She prepared a table full of delicious food and told him stories about his father's childhood. It turned out that his grandfather had passed away early, forcing his young father to go out to work at a young age to support the family. Later, World War II broke out, and his father was forced to go to the battlefield. On the battlefield, he met a comrade in arms. They fought side by side, desperately resisting and saving many lives. Unfortunately, in the end, his comrade still sacrificed himself, while his father, who was lucky enough to survive, became silent and withdrawn. Before his comrade died, he entrusted his fiancée to his father. To fulfill his comrade's will, his father married his comrade's fiancée, Anna, who was also his mother. On the way home, his mood was extremely complicated. In the past, he had thought his father was an extremely selfish and irresponsible man, but now he didn't know how to evaluate him. However, the next day, he noticed something strange about his father. After receiving a mysterious phone call, his father hurriedly went out. He quickly followed and discovered that his father was secretly meeting another woman. At that moment, his mind went blank. He could accept his father's indifference and even selfishness, but he couldn't accept that his father had someone else in his life. Filled with grievance and anger, he went to his friend's bar and directly ordered 3 glasses of whiskey. Then, under the astonished gaze of the waiter, he drank 1 glass after another. If his father was destined to leave them, then the only reason could be the woman he had met today. Unable to withstand the alcohol, he passed out directly.
Tu te saoules maintenant? T'as pas honte?
Et toi? T'as pas honte?
Walking on the cold street, he looked at his father's heavy baying back and couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Finally, he mustered the courage to ask his father about his feelings. He asked cautiously,
Papa? T'aimes maman?
Bien sûr.
T'as des problèmes?
Quel genre de problème?
D'argent? De santé ou... Y a quelqu'un d'autre? Tu vas nous quitter?
Dis-moi, t'as bu combien de bouteilles?
but his impatient father brushed him off harshly. To find out the truth, he secretly went to the nursing home and met the woman his father had been secretly seeing. She obviously knew who he was. He had intended to come and condemn and humiliate this woman, but looking at her haggard face, he couldn't muster any anger. She was his father's childhood sweetheart. They had spent the most beautiful moments of their childhood together, and this friendship had continued to this day without ever deteriorating or crossing the line. They had lost contact once, and he had thought they would never meet again. Who knew that not long ago, she had fallen seriously ill and coincidentally came to this small town. Then they met again. Maybe for the woman now, his father was her only spiritual support in fighting her illness. Faced with a seriously ill old friend, his father should have come to see her. He had no right to stop him. After all, he would have done the same thing. After thinking it through, he hid the story of the woman from his mother. It seemed his father had discovered his visit to the nursing home. Although his father didn't mention it directly, a knowing smile appeared on his face. The next day, his father took the initiative to suggest going fishing in the mountains. By the lakeside, his father appeared noticeably more relaxed. Curious, he asked his father about it. His father said he was used to using the mountain wind to heal the wounds in his heart. It was his way of releasing stress, and now he had passed it on to his son. Unfortunately, it seemed his son hadn't quite mastered this ability. Anyway, tomorrow was Sunday. Whether he could keep his father would depend on tomorrow. He thought he had everything under control, but in the middle of the night, his father quietly walked over to his bedside. The party for his father arrived as scheduled.
Elle est morte. Tu sais ce qu'elle m'a dit avant de mourir? J'ai survécu, mais j'ai pas vécu. Maintenant c'est trop tard.
As long as tonight passed, he would successfully rewrite the history of his father leaving. He was terrified that his father would go out again.
Zut, j'ai oublié d'acheter le pain.
Bah, j'y vais.
Non, Thomas va y aller.
On a pour 5 minutes.
But his father didn't show any signs of abnormality. He thought he had successfully rewritten history and let his guard down. Soon, dinner ended, and his mother brought out a cake to celebrate for his father.
Il est où votre fils?
But then they discovered his father had quietly left. He rode his bicycle to the station, where his father was waiting for the train. He pleaded with his father not to leave.
Dis à ta mère que...
Quoi?
J'ai laissé de l'argent dans l'armoire en haut. Elle saura où.
Mais maman va pas s'en remettre. Après ton départ, ça a été très dur pour elle. On va essayer de reprendre la boutique, mais ça va pas marcher. Alors elle va devoir trouver des petits boulots pour nous nourrir. Elle a jamais cessé de t'attendre.
Il faut que j'essaye avant qu'il soit trop tard pour moi aussi. Peut-être que tu me comprendras quand t'auras mon âge.
But despite all his efforts, his father still left. Clearly, even if it happened again, the inevitable was hard to change. If the ending couldn't be changed, then what was the point of this time travel?
Tu t'en vas comme ça, sans rien dire? Tu te rends compte? Et ton père, il est où? Le soir de son anniversaire?
La guerre, elle est partie.
Ne s'inquiète pas, il va revenir. Les hommes, ils ont parfois besoin d'eux.
Maman, il reviendra pas. Je te le dis, crois-moi.
I think the most outstanding part of this movie is that it doesn't fall into the cliché of defying fate to change destiny. Instead, it tells a story about seeing. Before the time travel, in Thomas's eyes, his father was a selfish, cold-hearted man who abandoned his wife and children. But after the time travel, he saw another side of his father. He saw the heavy burden his father carried by fulfilling his comrade's will, marrying a woman he didn't deeply love. He saw his father's suppression in the marriage, spending his whole life playing the roles of a good husband and father, but losing himself in the process. His father's words, "I've never made a choice for myself," were actually the inner monologue of countless middle-aged people. This isn't an attempt to whitewash his father's irresponsibility. Abandoning the family was wrong, and the harm it caused to his mother was real. But Thomas finally understood that parents are not just our parents. They are also human beings, with flesh and blood, vulnerabilities, and moments of collapse. The father who turned and left at the station was not a cold-blooded symbol, but a pitiful man crushed by life, trying to escape a suffocating environment. At the end of the movie, Thomas returned to his present home. He hugged his wife, with whom he had been in a cold war for a long time, and called his daughter. He couldn't save the marriage of the previous generation, but he learned how to manage his own life. During our growth, we often hold various criticisms toward our parents. We hope they are perfect, strong, and selfless. But when we reach middle age ourselves and face a messy life, and moments when we want to escape, perhaps we can suddenly understand the exhaustion in our parents' eyes on a certain late night. Thomas's time travel wasn't about changing the past, but about reconciliation. Now that he understood his father's escape, he let go of his own heart knot. If you've ever held a grudge against your family of origin, or if you have an unsolvable knot in your heart, you might as well watch this movie. Maybe we can't change the past in the end, but at least we can try to understand those imperfect loves and pains. Because understanding regret is, in itself, a form of completeness.